Welcome to Dilemma's Concepts. Today, what we're going to be looking at, we're going to be looking at statements. We're going to be looking at conditional statements, converse, the inverse, the contrapositive, and biconditional statements, and the symbols that are used with each. Stay tuned. I will be right back. Welcome back to Dilemma's Concepts. So here it is. So let us start off by looking at this question right here. So the question reads, it says here, for the conditional statement below, write the hypothesis and the conclusion. So what is a conditional statement? So a conditional statement is what we will call a if-then statement. So all conditional statements will come in the form if-then. Now, the phrase that comes exactly after the if, for example, here, when it says if two angles are complementary, then their sum is 90 degrees. Right after the if, right here, this part is our hypothesis. So the hypothesis, it comes immediately after the if. Bear in mind that the if is not a part of the hypothesis. So technically, this is not a part of the hypothesis. So the hypothesis reads, two angles are complementary. This is the hypothesis. Two angles are complementary. Now, the conclusion comes immediately after the then. So this is our conclusion. So the conclusion says their sum is 90 degrees. So bear in mind that bear in mind that the word then is not a part of the conclusion. It simply is the phrase that comes immediately after. So there it is. So the conclusion is their sum is 90 degrees. So whenever you have an if-then statement, the phrase that comes immediately after the if is the hypothesis. And the phrase that comes immediately after the then is the conclusion. All right, let's take a look at this, right? So what we want to do in this one, we want to write the inverse, the converse, and the contrapositive. And we want to write each symbol for each. So let us say this is our P statement that says, if a triangle is equilateral, then it has three congruent sides. We want to write the converse for this. The converse is when the hypothesis and the conclusion switch. So for example, let's take a look at what the symbol for this statement that we did here was. So this original conditional statement that we did, the symbol is if P, then Q. So that's the original condition. If P, then Q. Right? So this is if P, then Q in terms of a symbol for the conditional statement that we did originally. So the idea is that when we have the converse, the conclusion and the hypothesis switch. So we're going to have if Q, then P. So we're switching. So it means then I'm going to take this part and I'm going to make it my hypothesis. For example, I'm going to switch it like this. I'm going to say if, so I'm going to say if a triangle has 3 congruent sides, then it is equilateral. So this is a converse where we're going to do a switch. We're going to switch our hypothesis and our conclusion. So if a triangle has 3 congruent sides, then it is equilateral. And in terms of the symbol, we could see here, we switch it. So if Q, then P. Converse. What a converse does, right? So I'm going to put the symbol first. So a converse negates, all right, the hypothesis and the conclusion. So it's going to be not P, not Q. So if not P, then not Q. So it's going to negate both. And we're going to keep the hypothesis first and the conclusion after. So we're going to negate the original statement. So the original statement would have read, if a triangle is equilateral, then it has 3 congruent sides. So what we're going to do with it is that we're just going to say, okay, we're going to say if a triangle is not equilateral. So that is the inverse coming in. So we're going to negate that hypothesis. Then it does not have 3 congruent sides. So if a triangle is not equilateral, then it does not have 3 congruent sides. So we're negating the idea. The contrapositive, you switch and then you negate. So we're going to switch. So we're going to have if Q, then P, but it's going to be the negation of it, which we're going to put the not. So technically, if I negate my converse, I will get my contrapositive. So it's like writing my converse and I'm going to negate it. So I'm going to have if a triangle does not have 3 congruent sides, then it is not equilateral. So as you could see, I switch the original and I negate both, right? So that is how we actually write those. Let's take a look at what if I'm given a certain statement and I'm asked to write a biconditional. So here it is that we have an if-then statement. So it reads, if a triangle is equilateral, then it has 3 congruent sides. So we have our original statement, as you could see here. Now, for this statement, we want to write a biconditional statement. So a biconditional statement is one in which the symbol will go both ways. So with a biconditional statement, our conditional statement is true, and our converse is also true. So it's like the statement could go both ways, which would have indicated the double arrow. So P to Q, Q to P. That's the symbol. How do you write it? To write a biconditional statement, what we do is we're going to remove the if, we're going to remove the then, and we're gonna place where the then is, we're gonna put if and only if. If and only if. We're gonna put it right here. So where we have then, we're gonna put if and only if. So for example, this is gonna be the statement. We're gonna say a triangle. You notice I'm not gonna say if. So biconditional statement does not start with if. So a triangle is equilateral. And now we're going to put in this. If and only if it has 3 congruent sides. So there is it. So a triangle is equilateral if and only if it has 3 congruent sides. That is what we call a biconditional statement. Now, what if we're given a biconditional statement? For example, if it says a triangle is acute if and only if all 3 angles measure less than 90. What if we're asked to come up with our original statement and then the converse? The good thing about having a biconditional to change into the original conditional statement is that where the if and only if is, we're going to take that out. And we're going to replace that with then. And in the beginning, we're going to put if. If I do this, my biconditional becomes the original condition. Let's take a look. If a triangle is acute, then all 3 angles measure less than 90 degrees. So there it is. The only thing that was done was there was some replacement here. We put this in, and right here we took out if and only if, we put then. So if you look, the wording is the same, but we put the if, the then, because conditional statement must have if and then. From this, we could write the converse. So the converse is we're going to switch the argument. So we're going to say if triangle has all 3 angles measuring less than 90 degrees, then it is acute. All right, so basically, there it is. We were able to take conditional statements. We write the converse, the inverse, and the contrapositive. We look at the symbols. Also, when given a conditional statement, we were able to write the original statement and the converse. Thank you for watching Daily Concept. See you next time.